We came down from, Danny got that job as air traffic controller. When they moved the center to Hampton, we came to Hampton. And the first time that we drove into Hampton, the first thought came in my mind was, I'm moving into a ghost town.
I taught school in Hampton most of the time, but in other schools in Henry County. But I always felt like that my place was in Hampton.
I was born here. My grandfather moved here back in the 30s, and my father grew up here, and his family, he graduated Hampton High School, and I got to go to Hampton Elementary, and we were part of the last 8th grade class that graduated, and got to see quite a few of those friends here today.
We moved to Sunnyside in '37. And I went to school at Sunnyside through the 7th grade they had then. And then I went to Spalding High one year and changed to Griffin High. But all the girls in Sunnyside were crazy about the boys in Hampton. So we used to walk up to Hampton, especially on a Sunday afternoon. We'd put on high heels and walk up that highway to Hampton.
Just my hometown. I've been here all my life. I remember my first time in Hampton. I came down when I was 5 years old. Went to Miss Harrison's department store on Main Street, and I had $5 for my birthday. It was my birthday, and I went and bought me a Tonka truck with that $5. Okay, that's what I did with it. All right, and that was my first memory of it. But I mean, I have memories of Hampton all my life, and I have no desire to go nowhere else. It's always positive.
My father owned New Morn Egg Farms, and just about everybody in Hampton at one time or another worked or went to the chicken farm to get eggs. And that's where I grew up. I grew up at the chicken farm. And that's one of my many favorite memories. Also, my grandparents lived right across the railroad tracks over here in that little house that faces West Main Street. And every Sunday was always Sunday dinner at Grandma and Grandpa's. And so we would always sit on the front porch and have Sunday dinner. That's two of the best memories I have of Hampton.
I was born in Griffin, and I've lived in my same house on James Street probably 72 years, maybe 73 years.
My daddy was in the Air Force when I was born, and after he got out of the Air Force, he hired on with the Air Traffic Control Center out here, and that's what brought him down. I think it was like 1960 we moved here.
Except for a few years while I was married, I felt like taking care of Mom and Daddy. I was living in Hampton half the time anyway, even though I wasn't. I resided in Jonesboro. But basically, yes. I mean, I was born Griffin Hospital, came home with a picnic basket, still have it. And, but was raised here, and this is where I'm going to die.
Well, I was born and raised here and been here all my life except for a couple of years off at college.
I've been here since birth, 58 years this year. And memories, in my life, that's what I guess sustains me, because I still live in Hampton, and I see how things have changed, but how much it's still the same.
Well, we moved in a little house that Southern States owned on Derrick, 2 houses from the end, and then we moved to where I am now in 46. My daddy was working at Southern States where they were making the parts for the bombs for World War II.
My husband and I had 5 children, and we were living in Mara, Georgia. And at that time, my husband not only was an educator, but he had an insurance and real estate business as well. And he came home one day and he said, you know, we have been thinking about needing more room in our house because we're outgrowing it. And I found a house in a little town about a 20-minute drive from here. I want you to come go with me. We'll go down there and see it. And we came to Hampton, Georgia, and it brought back so many memories because when I first graduated from high school and went all the way to Carrollton, Georgia to go to college, I met 3 girls there who were from a little town that I'd never even heard of, Hampton, Georgia. And on the weekends, I would come home with them or they'd come home with me. And when I would come home with them, this is where we came to Hampton. And a lot of the people that are now gone were the people that I first met in Hampton, never dreaming that in time to come that I would live in this town. And a lot of people that I met then, I were reacquainted with when we moved here.
I grew up here. Went to 8th grade here, 7th and 8th grade here, and just lived here all my life. Still live here.
Well, we moved here when I was 7. Started off in the 2nd grade at Hampton Elementary, and I went 1 year to Henry County High School in McDonough, and then we moved to Australia for the 6 years.
Well, my dad was an air traffic controller at the center up there, and I was actually born on Rosenwald Street in Marietta, and we moved down here. We actually had a house down there by the railroad, and we're just renting that house. And then once my parents found the house over on Woodlawn, we moved over there. And I think I was 4 years old maybe when that happened, so I don't remember all the details then, because I've been at 4 years old. But
just when we moved to the lake at Lake Talmadge, started going to Hampton Elementary, and it was lots of fond memories.
I lived most of my life here. I think I was actually born somewhere else, but I've lived here probably since I was 2. We moved away once, but we're back here, so most of my life has been here. My daddy was born and raised here. My mother was born and raised in Sunnyside. Actually, probably one of the first families in Hampton would be the Fears, and I'm related to the Fears. And then everybody knows Arthur Henderson. That was one of my uncles. He was married to my Aunt Oma. So a lot of the names that you hear in Hampton are relatives of mine, and a lot of the history of Hampton is history of mine. And like I said, I grew up here. I went to the kindergarten at the Methodist Church right back there, and my grandparents lived down Oak Street, and I had relatives all around. So it's home.
Charles Pondo, we called him Tough, but he lived on Oak Street, and his family had always been in Hampton. Harvey Pondo was a big part of Southern States, and Arthur Henderson was my mother-in-law's brother, Arthur, and he had a lot to do with Hampton. He sold the houses from the mill to people, and they fixed them up, and that's when I married Charles. We moved to Emory Street, and all the houses on Emory Street were houses that belonged to the mill.
The kids in the neighborhood on North Avenue are my best memory, because we grew up with the Mosses, the Griffins, the Yates, the Basses, and Daddy would get out there and teach them how to ride the bicycle backwards. It was always, we'd go out the screen door in the morning and come back time to eat, and everybody was safe. Everybody knew everybody. Mother didn't have to worry about where we were or if we were coming home.
Well, we grew up on North Avenue, so the Wilkersons and the Griffins and the Yates and the Moss and Glass, the Bass family, Smiths, and then the ones on Bill Street and on the back. they were a community that cared for us. You know, my brother was a sleepwalker. He's going to kill me for this. And you know, in the middle of the night, the doorbell rings, and one of the neighbors would say, well, Keith kind of forgot where, you know, he went to the wrong house, so I brought him back home, you know, and we, you know, things like that. But they were just a supportive community. Everyone was.
My 5th grade school teacher, Miss Grace LeGuin. She was a little bitty lady, but she was like a bantam rooster. She didn't put up with nothing. And my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Lizzie Strickland.
There's quite a few that were larger than life, especially the parents that lived in our little neighborhood. We lived up on Emory Street. I think of the Dills and Miss Thaxton and her brother Mac Thaxton, Uncle Mac, and they were surrogate parents. When you went into town, the Mac Brears had the grocery store, and Mr. Daniel had his grocery store, and there were Mr. Tarpley with the gas station, and Jack Burrell and George Luna down here at the drug stores, Dr. Macias, other business owners, the police department, the police officers. We knew them by name, and we knew the chief, and they talked to us and spent time with us.
The big house on the corner, that was the turnip seed house. Miss Turnip Seed was not kin, but her son was like an uncle. We called him Uncle Earl, so I would go see her, and she always had a granddaughter up in the summer, and I'd go visit there and go to the Methodist church with them there. But then when I married Charles, Harvey Fonda went to the Christian church, and so I started going to the Christian church there.
All it's Coley's, Ray's, you know, a lot of them associated with the youth club, and the Meekses. It's all positive memories, you know, really.
And when we lived on Derrick, I was just learning to ride a bicycle, but the neighbors there, the Paynes and the Nortons, and we knew we had a certain place we could ride that bike to up that hill and back, and that was it. Mother never had a worry. And I just wish it was that way today.
Riding the school bus, you know, back and forth to McDonough from Hampton. And one of the things we was talking about a while ago with a group and is getting off the bus on Main Street in Hampton every afternoon, which they won't let you do that anymore, but walking down to Jack Burrell's drugstore, getting candy, and then walking down the railroad tracks back to Hampton Elementary and catching the bus home.
But I just remember just when I was growing up, Hampton was a small town. We just a couple of drugstores and a few little things on the street. Cook's grocery store, I believe. And I remember we would go down the street to Luna Drugs, and in the afternoons he always had a bottle of Flintstone vitamins. He would crack open and hand out little vitamins to all the kids that would come up. And it was kind of neat when you were younger. Go up and, you know, when you had an allowance and buying your Coke and candy bars up there from him. And just, honestly, the town was small enough. We rode bikes everywhere. We got to go through town and just kind of visit with your friends and just ride around with bikes. And in the summer playing softball. I played softball for years in town. It was a lot of fun.
You know, my cousins lived with us for a short time. And we would always go down to the lake right there by the house and go swimming and just have a fun family time, ride our bikes, you know, and that was just always real special to me.
My grandfather, Tom Steele, he was one of 12 Steeles around here in this area that kind of developed this area, and I was his only granddaughter, and he said, I'm going to build this lake and I'm going to call it you, and I was like, no, call it Lake Mama Steele, don't call it me. But I was 3 years old when I remember seeing him dig it out, so that means I'm old.
Most of my memories are good memories. Growing up, I grew up on Shelby Street over on the east side of town. A lot of our friends and all were in the area. A lot of my fond memories, Gene Copeland had the hardware store here in Hampton and sold little mini bikes. And I remember going in there when I was a kid and So he had a little room and they were all set up on display, and I just fell in love with one and told Daddy, I'd just like to have one of them. You ain't getting one of them things. And anyway, he surprised me later on for Christmas. I got a Ruck TT500. I had that thing, and we used to, the police and all were a lot more lenient back then with us, and we had a little mini bike gang around North Avenue and Shelby Street there, and we just tore them streets up back and forth and had trails built all down in the woods, and that's a lot of good memories, all of us hanging around out there and riding the mini bikes and stuff around.
This time of year, I told some, reminded me of with the Halloween coming up, we'd get out and just walk everyone's house, and you'd call them by name. They knew who you were, and then we'd get together. And churches would do that. I've been a member of Liberty Hill, but I've had the parties and things at Berea, the Methodist Church, the trick or treat for UNICEF, and we just at Hampton First. We've just had a good time living together and growing up together.
Uncle Willard McBrayer that owned the grocery store in town. I remember when we were small growing up and being there. My mama worked there and my brother worked there, and I stood by the Coke machine and drank RCs all day while they worked, watching the Nancy Hanks go by.
Being at the Hampton ball field it was a big event. Everybody came, and Mary Lou and Dub Coley running the concession stand with the great hamburgers and that kind of thing. So that's probably one of my favorite.
Member of First Hampton Baptist Church, this little church right up here up the block, the old one. Clint Rogers was our pastor, and of course Miss Jewel North was song leader, and all his kids sat on the front row with her because she gave us lifesavers. Well, I had this dog, Skip, which was determined he was going to go to school, church, wherever. So one Sunday, the doors were open, we had no air conditioning, so it was hot. Clint got up there and gave the benediction, and lo and behold, who comes down the aisle but Skip? He says, that's the most dedicated church member I've got.
It's so funny because I didn't know that it was special. It was so clear out here. My daddy was Grady Fizz, and he bought that farm in 1913. And so I, of course, was born a lot later than that. And we just had a great time. We had horses, we had goats, we had every kind of cows and sheep, everything, we had it. And we just would have our friends over, and we all played in the pasture and everything, and it was just a really great place to live because we lived on that farm, and we was safe because the workers were looking out after us too.
My grandfather, Floyd Edwards, ran a flour mill on George Avenue, and I remember him and going to the mill. Of course, I was about 8 years old and I wasn't allowed in the mill, but guess what? I went to the mill, and they would come back and say, have you been down to the mill? And I'd say, no, I haven't. But I was covered with flour so that I couldn't get by with anything.
I had a popular hot rod back then. It was a 68 GTX. It actually got me a girl, okay, really, because I came to Hampton, I've been coming all my life, but in the early 70s, I think it was 73, Linda Deal, she was working in a Burrell drugstore. And I got a couple of little tips from a couple of friends that she wanted to ride in my car, okay? So I went by there and checked with her, and sure enough, she ended up taking a ride, and she's still there. GTX gone, but she's still around. I wish I had the GTX too, okay, really,
That was one thing about this town was they surrounded the ball field during ball season. Everybody you knew came to the ball games because either their kid, their grandkid, or their neighbor's kid was playing ball. And it was good, that we had that time. But I tell you, R.W. Coley and Harold Dodgen was a big inspiration on that because they believed in if a child wanted to play, they were going to play, no matter if the parent had the money or they didn't have the money. So that was back in the good days.
we were with my brother, our younger brother Matthew had just had a birthday, and he'd gotten a automatic cap gun. It looked like a Tommy gun. It was really a cool thing, and it was battery operated. I think you could pull the trigger and hold it, and it would just fire off the cap rounds. And so we decided one night that we were going to go and scare the police officer that was just sitting up there asleep anyway. I guess I'm 9, 10. I'm not very old. And Robbie's 4 or 5 years older than me. So somehow I got volunteered to do that. Now you go and just kick the door in and just fire it.
We're going to run
and
up
then
there.
Run.
Yeah. We're going to all run up there. And there was some out-of-towners. I say it was their influence that made us do it. But some out-of-towners. And they said, let's all 4 of us go up there and just push the door open. And it was in the wintertime. It was cold, so we had the door shut. And stick the gun in the door and just pull the trigger. And he was asleep. He jumps up.
He was laying back in the chair against the wall. You know how you lean back in those chairs on the 2 back legs?
Propping on the wall.
Good.
Pulled the trigger, the smoke and the gun went off. It scared him to just about knocked his shoes off. It scared him so bad. He jumped up. We took off, turned and ran just like the plan. And by the time we hit the railroad track, he said, "Stop!" And Mark, "Stop!" He stopped and held his arms up, and we kept running. And I said, "Man, we got to do something now." He stopped. So we walked back up there, and we never saw the Tommy gun again. He took that.
Yeah, we never told Mother.
You have now.
Yeah.
They detoured the traffic through Hampton. That was like 3 in the morning. That was fun. They told me we had to ride with the police officers for 3 months, twice a week, I think, a whole shift. I wound up doing it for 3 years.
I can remember things like sleeping on the balcony, and I can remember when we had to cut down the magnolia tree that was in front of the house. Of course, it was a good thing to do, but it was so traumatic to us that we all went shopping while they were cutting the tree. We didn't want to watch. We left for that. I remember early mornings getting in that car and flying down to Griffin to be at school on time. And I remember being the happiest here that I've ever been anywhere.
A group of us, we were pretty tight. Spending the night at Donna Daniels' house and walking to the ballpark to watch her brother Bobby play ball, and he was a good bit older than us, so that was just the coolest thing.
Just doing what kids do. I mean, of course, we didn't have the electronics like we do now, so we had to go out and occupy ourselves and do things outside. And we rode bikes, mini bikes, whatever we could find to do. Skateboards, skates. I mean, just whatever. Got a lot of fond memories of the ballpark. Of course, playing ball there, and then also I remember the 4th of July was always a special kind of time of the year, with the fireworks. I still, to this day, I really love fireworks. I went to the last Braves game on Friday night, and that was a joy just seeing those fireworks. And, just seeing the community come together, and just having a good old-fashioned hometown feeling and just being there together and doing fun things together.
When I had that GTX, I was southbound here on Main Street one afternoon, about that same time, and the depot this time, it was still empty. It hadn't been, fixed up. And when I passed by it, I noticed an old model Rolls Royce, like a 50-something model Rolls Royce sitting at the end of the depot. And there looked like a rock group standing in front of the depot, and they had a camera on a tripod there. And I'm like, who is this? It got my curiosity up. I said, this is a rock group taking a, photo shoot or something. So I went down to the night owl and turned around and drove back up here and pulled in there, and I got out and walked up to him and I said, who are y'all? And Ronnie Van Zant spoke up and said, we're Leonard Skinner. And I said, really? And I said, what are y'all doing at Hampton? And that photo is on their 4th album. It's actually a photo of that on that one of the albums. But a lot of people don't believe me when I tell them sometimes I met Leonard Skinner in Hampton one time.
Well, going to Hampton Elementary, I mean, you know, being Miss Orr and, you know, being in her class and being a cheerleader for the Hampton Hornets with the Roans, and, you know, we had a good time back then.
But one of my fondest memories was Mr. Roy Greer's service station, which was down below State Farm. He was good friends with Daddy. And at one time, well, we won't go there. But anyway, I can remember going in those doors, the floor to the place was dirt. He always give me a Coca-Cola and peanuts and fix my bike. And when that man died when I was 6 years old, I thought they were going to have to put me in the ground. I just loved him. We'd buy sugar cane up there at Halloween. We wouldn't buy it. He'd give it to us, you know. And when they tore that building down, I thought, there goes part of history, as well as the police shack.
Whenever I think of Hampton and growing up in Hampton, I think of Mr. Marvin's store. And whenever you go in, he had a Lance jar at the front of the store with the soft peppermint candies, and he would always give you one. And I think about being in kindergarten, and my granddaddy was Harvey Ponder, and everybody knew Harvey walked. He didn't have a car. He just liked to walk around town, so everybody knew him. So he would walk and get me from kindergarten and walk me back to his house. And sometimes he'd walk me up to Mr. Marvin's store, and he would always give me a quarter or 50 cents, and we'd go by Marvin's, and I'd get some M&Ms and a Coca-Cola on the way home. So Mr. Marvin's was the center of town. I remember going with Daddy up to Mr. Gene Copeland's. That was like the meeting place. So we'd go in and all the men would be there, or to Luna Drug Store. They'd sit and drink their coffee in the morning. And so you just knew everybody.
But the favorite thing I used to do was when the old gym at the school at Hampton Elementary, we used to have the Halloween party. It's Halloween. It's not Fall Festival. It's Halloween. And they had, the locker room was the haunted house, and you did the cakewalk, and all the kids showed up, and it was just so much fun.
One of the best things I ever remember is all the 4th of July things we used to do over at the old Hampton, at the elementary school. I mean, we would be over there all day long. We would be playing baseball and softball and chasing a pig around and fireworks. It was great. We had a blast all day long.
And go to the drugstore and see Mr. Hawkins, and he was always so sweet. And then we had the movie was there then, and a bowling alley. And so, you know, we always had something to do. And then as I got a little older, they had square dances over at the old gym. And so I was up here every Friday night to a square dance if I had a date. That's where I wanted to go. And so then that's where I met my husband, Charles Pondo.
Our school was a community school, and more than half of the teachers that taught in those early years when you were a student lived in Hampton. We lived here, we worked here, we shopped here, we went to church here, and not only did we see all of you children and our students at school, but we saw you in other places as well. And that made our relationship special. And it made it easier for us to teach you because we knew that we had the support of the parents.
It's just a small town, and what's funny is it seems like the people that I grew up with and knew are still here. A lot of them are still here, or they come back, and that makes it special to me. It's just, it still has that hometown feel. I live in Conyers, Georgia now, but when I come through and I come down here, I still get that home feeling. You know, it's still home to me, always will be.
That's home. It's just, I mean, a lot of people that go off and move to bigger cities and such, but it's just home. It feels good. It feels just like it's the right place to be. Just everyday things, just really being comfortable and enjoying home, and just having friends around, just that you can see it when you're younger after school, and just doing things now with friends and neighbors as we get older, have good relationships with neighbors on our street. It's just still a good place to be.
We were able to walk everywhere, which was really wonderful. We didn't have to go anywhere else. We had everything right here in Hampton that we needed, which was wonderful, wonderful.
No, I guess, you really consider yourself blessed to be in a loving, caring community. When I grew up as a young child, all my 8 years in elementary school, first through 8, and your classes were small, you knew everyone, you knew their families. We had events at the school and community at the park, and it was just so nice.
I don't know exactly. It was the small town feel. Everybody knew everybody. Whenever anybody was in trouble or sick or anything, everybody pitched in. You did your part. And it was I just fell in love with it. And I always wanted to come back. It's a perfect place to raise kids, even though I don't have any. I have a step-granddaughter, and she's enjoyed it. But, it's a special place.
I mean, you could get on the phone, ring up the grocery store, get them a grocery list, and they deliver the groceries to your house. Every day they had a 3 or 4 o'clock delivery.
I did that.
They deliver groceries. I think Mark.
I did that.
Did it for a while.
I worked at Marvin Daniels Grocery in the afternoons after school, and I do deliveries.
Families helped each other. Families came to each other's rescue during times of difficulty. Families encouraged one another, and the ball fields and the ball teams during the summer were like a community gathering spot, and everyone knew one another and had their own lives, but our lives intermingled there, and we were able to go to school together and work together and play together. And it was there was employment here if we wanted it. We were able to get jobs. I worked at the chicken farm and worked at the gas stations downtown here. We were able to find an employment, not have to go somewhere else looking for it.
I went to San Diego to visit my son, and he took me into San Diego, and we went down by the railroad tracks, and the train blew, and I almost cried because it reminded me of Hampton.
The people. It's really a close group of people, citizens in town that really care, and you find out, when somebody is ill or somebody's in the hospital, you really find out that they're there for you.
It's special because it's home, and we could go anywhere and do anything without worrying about anybody bothering you. And that was the big thing back then.
I wouldn't leave Hampton for nothing. I love it. I love all the people, and you couldn't walk down the street and meet a stranger. But now you can. But I love Hampton. I'm so proud of of the whole family. There's not a bad one in the bunch. I said, there's, just a big loving family. That's the way Hampton is. Everybody just thinks of people as family.
I've kind of split my time between Hampton and South Georgia, where I live now. I live in Statesboro, and my grandfather and all had a farm down there, and every year when I got out of school, I always went down there and spent the summers, and that's how I ended up, met my wife down there, and that's where we make our home now. But this is still home. I mean, when I think about going home, it's all the kids we grew up with, who, you and Mark Stevens, and some of my best friends that I have up here, and just the memories we have from Hampton Elementary School here, and just things like that. Just think back on. Good to see a lot of people I hadn't seen in many years.
Well, just a lot of good memories, a lot of good friends, and it's times that Cindy and myself, we drive through town going somewhere. Not often, but we come through here, and we'll both say, we wish we still lived over here, because it's just home. Down good earth people, just loving community.
Because when you're, my age, and you think, oh, if I could just get them to come to one of these, if they would just come, we could just, it just brings back very happy memories,
Well, the people hadn't changed. They got older. I didn't, but everybody has got older, and they're still the same people. And you can walk anywhere in Hampton any day and see the people that you grew up with. They're still here.
But you can tell by the ones who showed up here at the reunion, it's a blessing to see them, and it's sad that you know some of them's gone that you don't see the following year, But I appreciate Tina and them putting this on and you helping with it, to try to get everybody together.
I don't live that far away, but life just takes you in different directions, and so sometimes it's good. Sit back, rest, reminisce, and refresh your soul.
I'm glad that to see Hampton where it is today. I mean, you never really know when you're growing up, where you're going to wind up. But I always can feel like my heart is in Hampton. I mean, I know the folks here. I grew up with them. It's not that I don't enjoy the friends I have now, but it's the folks in Hampton that's really where your heart is, and any chance I get to come down here, I do.
You still have that sense of when you can get together at a gathering like this, you still have a sense of home. Even though Hampton's changed and we have so many different people here, there's still a core group of people that we all grew up similarly, and we have a past that we share, and a love for this little town that I hope continues at least through the rest of our life. And I hope that the people that are living here now can get that sense of home that we had growing up.
And I just hope that people that have an opportunity to view what we've been able to record will understand, and it would touch something inside of them that would cause them to want to reach out to others while they have the opportunity, and just to express how they feel, and to let them know that they mean something to them and encourage one another.
And the sun's setting fast, and just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Well, go on now and kiss it goodbye, but hold on to your lover, 'cause your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun setting down on our town, on our town? Good night. Up the street beside the red neon light, that's where I met my baby on one hot summer night. But the sun's setting fast, and just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Well, go on now and kiss it goodbye, but hold on to your lover, 'cause your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun setting down on our town, on our town? Good night. It's here I had my babies and I had my first kiss. I've walked down Main Street, the cold morning mist. Over there is where I bought my first car. It turned over once, but then it never went far. And I can see the sun setting fast, and just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Well, go on now and kiss it goodbye, but hold on to your lover, 'cause your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun setting down on our town, on our town? Good night. I buried my mama and I buried my pa. They sleep up the street beside the pretty brick wall. I bring them flowers about every day, but I just gotta cry when I think what they'd say if they could see how the sun's setting fast, And just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Well, go on now and kiss it goodbye, but hold on to your lover, 'cause your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun setting down on our town, on our town? Good night. Now I sit on the porch and watch the lightning bugs fly, but I can't see too good, I got tears in my eyes. I'm leaving tomorrow, but I don't wanna go. I love you, my town, you'll always live in my soul. But I can see the sun setting fast, and just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Well, go on, I gotta kiss you goodbye, but I'll hold to my lover, 'cause my heart's about to die. Go on now and say goodbye to my town, to my town. I can see the sun has gone down on my town, on my town. Good night. Good night.